Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to pass the mic to Brandon Peterson, one of our account managers for ApplicantStack, and he is going to share his screen and lead us through this webinar. So take it away, Brandon.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to go over our recruiting software, and we hope you find value in what ApplicantStack can do. Our goal here is to help you build your business by empowering you to find the right people and the right talent. And we all know it's a challenging environment out there in the workforce, so we hope that this can be helpful for you. So firstly, I want to show you a brief overview of the layout of ApplicantStack. So when you're logged into ApplicantStack, there's tabs across the top for navigation. And there's also a head and shoulders icon, which gives you quick access to your user account and the general setup for the company account. On various pages of ApplicantStack, you'll see these action menu items on the right. These are dynamic, and they change based on whatever page you're on to give you quick access. Yeah.
Brandon, hey, this is Ellen. And can you please share your ApplicantStack screen with us?
I'm sorry, I thought I had it shared.
I'm not sure. Is anybody else seeing, any organizer seeing Brandon's screen?
I'm seeing it coming in now. Looks like.
Me too. Excellent, okay. Brandon, thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you for fixing that. I apologize. I had it highlighted in green, but it was on an external monitor, so that must have been the issue.
We got it now. Thanks.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, I'll start over. Anyway, this is the home screen of ApplicantStack, and there's various tabs across the top for navigation, and we'll go through these one by one. And then also here is the head and shoulders icon, we call it, which gives us quick access to the My Account page, which helps you edit your settings and then the setup as well. And on each page, you'll often see menu items on the right side here, and we call this our action menu. And these are dynamic, and they change based on what page you're on to give you access to certain tasks that you may want to do on that page. So the real power of ApplicantStack comes into the automations that you can create to streamline your process for hiring and recruiting. And the power comes in through the workflow, which we'll talk about, and also the library and templates that live in the library. So first, we're going to go to the library. In the library, we see various types of templates that can live here. There's job templates, questionnaires, messages, tasks, events, and documents. And so the first type of template here are the job templates. So you can see here I have 3 job templates that have already been created: account executive, actor, and janitor. And we also have questionnaires. So these are helpful to help screen candidates. It helps automate the process of figuring out who might be a qualified candidate for the job that you've posted. Messages are emails or texts that can be sent to your candidates to communicate next steps or to communicate decisions that have been made based on their application. I'm going to skip over tasks today, and then events could also be events that take place during the recruiting process. Very common one would be the interview. All right, so we're going to go to the Jobs tab. I'm going to show you how to create a job. So in the top right, we see on the action menu, create a job. So I'm going to click on that, and we're displayed a prompt that offers us to create a new job from just a blank form or from a template. So I'm going to select from a template. And I'm going to post a job for actor. So everything you see here was built in the jobs template, so it's pre-populated. But I can edit it for specifics for this particular job. So it defaulted to Salt Lake City, but this position we'll say is for Atlanta. And we have these various fields that will be unique to each job that you can edit. The job description is the part of the job that will be pushed to various job boards. ApplicantStack can integrate with many job boards, Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn, Google for Jobs, and many others. And so this is what will be pushed to those services and would also appear as the job description on our own internal job board. Lastly, we assign a job owner. So depending on your office and company, you may want to have everybody be a job owner or just a few people. And so here, obviously, Brandon Demo has been assigned as the job owner. So I'll save this job. Oops. All right, so right now, the job hasn't been posted anywhere, but we have the next step. So we would go to pending approval. And these buttons are defined by our workflow, which we're going to talk about next. I'm going to go ahead and open this job, and you can add a note if you like. So now on my jobs tab, we'll see that there's a new job posted here, 1007, for an actor in Atlanta, Georgia. If I click into the job, I can go to the Launch tab, and this will show me the job boards that I can push my job out to. I also want to be able to give people an easy way to get access to my application. And so with premium texting, I'm going to create a text code word, and I'm going to just call it actor. The text to apply feature can be very helpful in the physical space. So if you're posting jobs, if you're advertising for employment on vinyl lettering on the back of your car or on a billboard or a sandwich board on the sidewalk, it's very helpful to put the number, your phone number, on that advertisement. And then candidates that are interested, they only have to text to that number the code word. So if any of you wanted to do that, you would just text the word actor to the number 801-845-3219. And you should actually be able to do this right now. So if you want to try it out, you can. Text the word actor to that number, and you would get a response texted to you with a link to the application. Next, I'll edit the launch status. So this is where I will decide which job boards I want my job to go to. And for this purpose, I want it to go to all of the available job boards. So my public job board, which is hosted by ApplicantStack, and then these other third parties. It asks for a little additional information. And when I submit, this job would be posted to the Indeed organic postings, for Google for Jobs, for LinkedIn, and also to my public job board. Okay. On the action menu on the right, you'll see open job board. So let's look at our job. All right, so here's our public job board, and this is what it would look like to an applicant. So if I'm interested in the actor position, I can just click there, read over the job description, and apply now. All of this is configurable. That's one of the wonderful things about ApplicantStack. I can configure which questions the application is going to ask, which fields the candidate's required to fill out, and I can configure if I want them to be able to upload a resume. So I'm not going to bore you with filling out this form. So I've already created one here. So if Will Smith were to have applied for this actor position, it would show up in ApplicantStack under the Candidates tab. And this is where his information would show. The resume, if it had been uploaded, would show under the Resume tab. And answers to questions would show here. So now, if I want to move Will Smith on to the next stage, I would simply go to the green button. I'm going to rate him as a top prospect. I'm familiar with his work, and confirm that stage change. All right, so when we go to these different green buttons or red buttons, this is accessing the workflow. I promised you earlier that we'd talk about that for a minute. So I'm going to show you my workflow and how the power of the workflow can really help streamline your process, save you time, and create a better experience for your applicants as well. So I'm going to go to the setup, and then on the left here, I'll go to configure. And the workflow we're interested in today is the application workflow, the stages, the process that an application goes through once it's been completed. We can set up multiple workflows. Different jobs might require different stages, different processes, so you're allowed to have multiple workflows. For our demo today, we'll be talking about the default workflow that I've created. All right, so my workflow has 8 stages. The new stage, which is when the application's been completed and submitted by the candidate, manager review, interview, background check, etc. So I'm going to open up my new stage and show you a few of the features here. So right now, the way I've configured my workflow is when a candidate enters the new stage, meaning they've completed their application, they get an automated message, both in email form and in text, that tells them we've received their application. And I like to also use calls to action. So if I hover over the email, you'll see the message that I've created. And you'll see it says that we're also asking them to fill out an additional questionnaire. So sometimes our application doesn't ask all the questions that we need to make a hiring decision. Or sometimes you don't want to ask those questions up front because asking too much or having too long of an application might be a deterrent to some applicants. And so by adding questionnaires to a follow-up message, you break up the process and you're still able to collect the application up front, and then you can automate collecting more information as a follow-up. So that's what I've done here. So once the application is complete, the candidate will automatically get this message. Now, some candidates won't fill out that questionnaire that I've asked them to fill out, and so I've created a small nurturing campaign, we call them. So I want another email to go out the second day after they've applied to remind them to fill out that questionnaire and to again thank them for their interest in the job. And so you can create a nurturing campaign for all of your stages, and these can be again either email or text. And that can really help with the conversion rates of your applicants to the interview or to the hire. So we've talked about the new stage. We don't need to go into every stage here, but you can see that we can automate those messages. We can automate the notifications to the different users, and we could even send automated interview invites. So the interview invites can also be attached to messages, and that's probably beyond the demonstration today. But I hope that you see that there's a lot to customize in ApplicantStack. There's more than we can cover in just today's demo, but we wanted you to understand the power of ApplicantStack and what you're able to do to streamline your process and help with your recruiting efforts. So thank you. We'll now have some time for questions. If you want to go ahead and post your questions in the question box, we'll take them one by one. I don't see any additional questions yet. Oh, here's a good question. If we're a longtime customer, but haven't kept up to date with all the changes, where's the best place to start? It's a great question. Thank you. So in ApplicantStack, there is a help center. And the quickest way to get to it is by going up to this orange box where you see the question mark in the top right. If you click on that, you'll see the help center. And by going to the help center, you'll see there's several helpful guides to get you started on Recruit or on onboarding. Each of these guides are high-level overview, but there's also other options to click into more specific questions. For example, if you wanted help understanding how to use questionnaires in your workflow, then you would just search for that and you'd find several articles that would help you understand how questionnaires are used. Does that answer your question?
While we wait for her response, Brandon, let me read another question to you. Can you elaborate on the questionnaire function? Is it live today across all locations?
Yes, I'd be happy to. All right, so again, the questionnaires live in the library. So I'm going to navigate to the library tab and to the questionnaires subsection. So I have this questionnaire here that I've created called pre-screening questions, and I'll open that up with the edit button. And so this questionnaire was specifically created for the actor job, okay? So we have 3 yes or no questions that are already in this questionnaire. And first question is, are you a member of the Screen Actors Guild? Second question, do you require production rights? And have you ever worked on screen on a James Cameron film? So we can add questions to that by choosing add. And we can have different types of questions. The 3 examples I gave are all yes or no questions, but we can also add multiple choice, select many checkbox type questions, single line or multi-line text where they're answering a question or an essay or something like that. You can ask them to put in the date, file, and signature. So all those are options for questions on a questionnaire. Now, one of the couple places we can use questionnaires would be first when we post the job. So in this job, obviously the application is already the main questionnaire, which we can see here. But we also want to add this pre-screen questionnaire. So we would just add from the library, and here's the list of the questionnaires that are available. And I would just submit it and add it to the application. So what I just did there was I lengthened the application by 3 additional questions. And earlier I spoke about how we may not want to do that. Again, in today's recruiting environment, overly burdensome applications can be an obstacle to applicants. Oftentimes they just click through and go to the next job that's easier to apply for. So we may not want to add it here, but instead we may want to make it part of our workflow and part of a message. So that's where I'll go back to the library and go to messages. And we have the application received message that I showed you earlier as part of the workflow. And you'll see here the last bit of that message is please complete this questionnaire to tell us where you can work. And so what we're doing here is we're linking to the questionnaire, and the email that the candidate receives would have a hyperlink here, allowing them to click on that and fill out those questionnaires. Okay,
And
I hope
Brandon?
that answers. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the best use cases for a questionnaire, as Brandon mentioned, is during the application process, so that you can screen your candidates and devote your time to those individuals who are most qualified for your job. So the only thing I wanted to add is questions within questionnaires that you can specify as either knockout questions and or you can score questions. So again, if a candidate is not qualified for an opportunity, you can determine that very quickly if one of your questions within a questionnaire, say, is a knockout question. And I think all of you as recruiters or as HR professionals would benefit by that. I know when I was a recruiter, it certainly helped me qualify those candidates who were most qualified for the job. Helped me isolate those candidates who are most qualified for the job, I should say.
That's great. Thank you, Ellen, for adding that. I could quickly show you how you would do that. So if I did want to add this pre-screen questionnaire that I showed you, I deleted it, so I better add it again. So this is now part of the application, these 3 pre-screen questions. And then as Ellen mentioned, we can make knockout questions, and we can use scoring to help make it easier and quantify the quality of candidate. So we go to scoring and create a rule. And I'm going to use my pre-screen questions to create these rules. So these fields are allowing you to put in a point value. So if they answer yes, we want to give them 10 points. If they answer no, 0 points, for example. For this question, are you a member of the Screen Actors Guild? Yes, we'll give them 10 points. But if they answer no, it's 0 points. And it's, as Ellen mentioned, a knockout question. So the candidate is not notified that that's a knockout question, that they've been disqualified, but the interface will highlight that candidate's record to show you that they've answered a knockout question and that they don't need to be considered. All right, any other questions?
Yep, there are more that have come through, Brandon. One of which is, how many nurture campaigns can you have?
That's a great question. As far as how many campaigns you can have, it would be limited to how many stages you have in your workflow. But I think what you're asking is how many different messages as a part of a nurturing campaign you can have. And I don't know that there is a limit. There probably is some cap. but you can have 10 or more. If you want 10 or more, you can go ahead and do that.
All right, and then we have a comment, which actually says, I joined a bit late, but wanted to know where the place was to edit the application workflow. I followed the process and love it. Thanks. So just a word of praise there, Brandon, and let me keep going with other questions then.
Good.
And I think you just answered the next question. How can we unlock the score function? This is
Yep. I think we did just answer that, so that may have been taken care of. But again, where I am now, I'm under the Jobs tab, and I've drilled into this particular job, the Actor 1007 job. And so when you're looking at the job screen, you have these tabs across the top, and the questions show which questions are part of the application. And then the scoring tab is where you would add that scoring element. It's not required, you don't need to use this, but it can be helpful, particularly with companies that have a high volume of candidates. Because sometimes you just don't even want to bother calling anybody, you don't want to bother reading their resume, because if they've answered, for example, a knockout question, you just know that they're not going to be a qualified candidate for you. Okay.
all right, Brandon. The next question is, are we able to link our Indeed applicants to automatically import to AppStack?
Yes, excellent question. So I'm already on this particular job, Actor. So to access the Indeed function, we'd go to the Launch tab. And what I showed you earlier was posting to the Indeed organic postings. And you don't need a login for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you need a login for that, Ellen. And so this just pushed it to the organic feed of Indeed, meaning we're not paying for it. It shows up at the top of the list when we first post it, and as it gets older, it starts to drop lower and lower. But if we want to sponsor on Indeed, which is one of the features of ApplicantStack, then we can do that. And yes, we do link our Indeed account to ApplicantStack, and we do that. I don't have a demo Indeed account, so I can't go that far with my screen share. So I'll just have to explain it to you. But once the job is live on Indeed organic postings, then this text here that I'm highlighting will become blue, and it'll be linkable. You would click on that, and then it's going to ask you to sign into your Indeed account, your Indeed employer account, I should specify. And then once you do that, then you set up a sponsoring campaign, you set your budget. As many of you are already familiar with Indeed, you just walk through that process and then save it. So as long as you do it from this interface, instead of going to Indeed directly and sponsoring your job, you do it from this ApplicantStack interface, those applicants that apply for that job will flow directly into ApplicantStack automatically.
All right, excellent. The next question, is it possible to schedule a live consult for a working session to update workflow rather than trying to figure it out from a guide?
Yes, that's a great question. So yeah, the answer to that is yes. You can, personally, I use I have a link to schedule time on my own calendar, so you can do that. But for me to send that to you, or if someone else is your account manager, you would again start by going to the orange box up here, the question mark, and you would just do ask a question. And this will give you a form that you can fill out. And this isn't just for technical support problems. You can also submit forms here for account management and for training. So just fill this out, and then when you submit it, it goes to all of us account managers, and somebody will respond to you to get that training scheduled.
And just to add on, it needs to start with submitting a technical support ticket, so that if multiple people are involved, there is a common area where all ApplicantStack technical support reps and/or account managers can see what has transpired. All right.
Right.
Next
Yes.
question. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellen. And that really is something I would like to add to and drive home. Of course, we as account managers want to be as available to you as possible. So we attempt to return phone calls and return emails, but using this form that I just showed you is really the best, because then we can track those responses, and if one of us happens to be out, the other account managers can pick it up and take care of it. Thank you, Ellen.
Yep. All right, next question, Brandon. Our existing employees are getting a message when we send annual paperwork. The following account has completed the onboarding process. If you need access to the hire portal, please contact your hiring manager. What do we need to do to get our employees access? You want me to take this one, Brandon?
Well, yeah, you can. I was going to say this is more of a technical support question that should be sent to us via technical support. I don't know that we can answer that on this call, but go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, sure. I think what's probably happening here is that your current employees that you have already onboarded previously are in an onboarding stage, which is an inactive stage. And by definition, an inactive stage in onboarding means that you as ApplicantStack users can view the information, but that hire or that current employee does not have access to onboarding anymore. And so typically an onboarding process is that you do move candidates to an inactive stage so they don't have access to their hire portal anymore. But if you want to open it up and provide annual documents, those employees need to be moved to an active onboarding stage, or the stage in which they're in needs to be modified to active. So again, I think that stage is probably what we are calling an inactive stage, and you can modify it if you want. Once modified, your current employees will have access to their onboarding portal again and can complete any information that you have provided them, such as annual documents or whatever. But as Brandon said, if you are having an issue with that, please submit a technical support ticket, and our technical support team can assist. But what I think you're trying to do can be done, so no worries there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ellen. Looks like the next question is, can you review how to extract data from the software? Do you want to take that question, Ellen? I think he's talking about exporting.
Yeah, sure. So you can do a couple things to extract data from the software. You can actually create an export, so that if you go to the Candidates tab, Brandon, if you would please, and choose a couple candidates by check marking on the left, and then from the gray menu on the right, export, that will create data in CSV formatted files that you can then import or you can then store elsewhere. So that's a quick demo of how to export data on a smaller scale. Another option is that you can create a report. So any report data can be exported to a CSV formatted file like Excel. You can manipulate that data in Excel, and then you could share it with anybody you desire. So there are a couple different ways to get data out of ApplicantStack.
Okay,
Hope that, Pat, helps and answers that question.
Looks like the next question is, how do I delete a name if I have a duplicate that doesn't show again? So I see the name only once and not twice, duplicate. Well, I think you're talking about applicants. So when you say names, it could be applicant or user, but I think you're talking about applicants. And I usually recommend not to delete people in most cases. but you can move them into an inactive stage. And if the duplicate application, meaning an applicant's applied for multiple jobs or the same job twice, is causing you problems, those are usually uniquely identified by their email address. And so you could go to the older application and just change out the email address or delete that, and then you're not going to have a conflict. But if you do want to delete them, then you can just click on the box next to their name, and then on the right action menu, there's an option for delete. So again, in most cases, I would recommend against deleting them entirely. Instead, I would recommend maybe setting them to a different stage. Okay, the next question, is there a way to see which templates are from you and which have been created from our staff that didn't understand the process to get rid of clutter? Great question. Yeah, libraries can get pretty cluttered, and especially when you have multiple users, and obviously even in the office we have turnover. Sometimes one person might create a message or a questionnaire, and nobody else knows what the purpose is. So again, I recommend against deleting most of the time, but if I were to, let's see here. So for example, under questionnaires, if this pre-screened question ended up being, as you would say, clutter, I can just select that and archive it here or delete it, depending on which you feel you need to do. The next question is there a way to see which templates, oh, that was the same question, sorry. What happened to the old questionnaire and point system? Alyssa, we may need you to clarify that. I'm not sure which old questionnaire you're referring to, but we have already gone over questionnaires and the point system. So if you have a more granular question about that, please put it in the questions and we'll see if we can answer that for you. If you have a knockout question, for example, we have a residency requirement for some positions. If someone gets knocked out for residency, can we set up it so an automatic message gets sent out? Ellen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So when during your initial application process, if you do have a qualifying questionnaire and a candidate is knocked out, no, the candidate does not get an automated email from the system saying they were knocked out. You would have to go in, review your candidates, and then you can mass disposition them and send them some sort of email or disposition if you wanted to. We do allow candidates, as Brandon mentioned earlier, the ability to continue with the application process even if they've been knocked out. And that's a means of expanding your database. And those individuals might be qualified for other opportunities. So to answer your question, Barbara, no, there's not an automated way to respond to a candidate who's been knocked out during the initial application process. But again, you can mass disposition candidates that have been knocked out and let them know via text or email that they are not being considered for the job anymore.
Thank you, Ellen. It looks like
Sure.
Alyssa wrote a follow-up. But Alyssa, I apologize. I still don't understand. I don't know what you had before, so I can't really speak to what was there before. But if there's a feature that you're wanting to add back in that you remember from the past, I think we've gone over how to create questionnaires and then how to score them, how to weight them, and then how to create knockout questions. But if you need further help on that, we would be happy to set up a call with you and do a screen share and walk you through that.
So Brandon, Alyssa is saying the score was weighted, and those scores, Alyssa, are weighted, and it's totally up to you as to how you want to weight them. So it could be an individual gets 10 points for 1 to 2 years of experience, 20 points for 3 to 5 years, 30 points for 5+ years. But that scale or that weighting is entirely up to you. So it could be 1 to 5, it could be 10, 20, 30, etc. So that functionality is still there. And again, with questions, you can flag them as knockout and scoring questions, or just one or the other. So I think the functionality is still there, but we'll see what account you're from, and we'll contact you and reach out to walk through that.
Great, thank you, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is there a way to refresh job postings so they look like a new posting on Indeed instead of it saying on the job posted 30+ days ago? So yeah, that's a great question. So I think this really comes into play when you're using the organic listings. It becomes less of an issue when you're sponsoring the jobs on Indeed. Yes, it still might say 30+ days, but when you're sponsoring it, it's gonna show higher in the search results. So that may or may not bother you as much. But to answer your question directly, you just would need to create a new job. And you don't have to start from scratch. I'm going to go to the jobs tab here. And let's say my janitor job here is getting a little bit stale. And so I can, first I would clone it. So there's an option here to clone the job. We're just copying everything that exists in the existing one. And this brings us to the job template. We fill this out as we want. We save it. And then, whoops, we need to move it to the open stage. And then we would launch it as we showed before. And then you may want to go back and clean up your Indeed listing. Since we've now cloned the job and created a new one just like it, probably a good idea to take this one down. And so we could do that just by checking the box and let's see here. Edit the launch status. Whoops, I don't want to edit the launch status. So I drill into the job, excuse me, and I edit the job. And now here you'll see the stage is open, so I could move it to canceled or on hold. And that would pull it down from any job boards that I posted it to, and it would also remove it from my own external job board.
And there's also a great article in our help center, Barbara. Brandon, if you click on the white question mark and drop down help center, and in the search bar put in refresh, if you would please. This is a great article you can refer to, because what's critical in this article is that you don't refresh your jobs more than every 60 to 90 days. And that's because if you do, Indeed will want you to sponsor them. So when you refresh or repost jobs, just be very careful that you don't do it too frequently.
Right, thank you, Ellen. Yeah, every job board has their own set of terms of use, and Indeed's one of the big dogs, so we're more familiar with some of their rules. But I believe it's 90 days for Indeed that they don't want you refreshing it. Now, people do it anyway. Sometimes they get away with it, but on paper, it is against their terms of use to refresh the job more than every 90 days. So it's important to be familiar with those rules on whichever job boards you're using.
All right, next question, Brandon, is would we be able to create an exit interview form for employees who are leaving the company?
Do you want to take that one? I'm not, I would think we'd want to do that in onboarding, not in recruit, but
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So my knee-jerk reaction, Jason, is you would want to create a stage in onboarding. So You would need ApplicantStack onboarding to do this, obviously. You could upload a form or create a form in ApplicantStack onboarding, which is your exit interview form, and you could send that to your exiting employee via their original onboarding portal if you wanted to. That's the best means I can think of doing that. So number one, you absolutely need ApplicantStack onboarding in order to do that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Roberta asks, my screen does not offer Indeed sponsored. Can you tell me why? All right, so for Indeed sponsored to show up, there is an account setting for that. So you may need to go into your setup, and then you go to job boards, and you'll see the different third-party job boards that are listed. You'll see that I have only 4 that are active, but I could activate Career Builder, Dice, Monster, ZipRecruiter, etc. So for Indeed, we would just go to the edit button for Indeed. And you'll see a setting here that allows Indeed sponsored. So if that Indeed sponsored section isn't showing up on your job launch tab, then that's what you would need to change. You need to go into your settings and allow Indeed sponsored. Now, the second point I would make is maybe you are seeing this section, but you don't have the option to click on it. And so that may be true. So what you need to do first is you need to post the Indeed organic postings, and those take anywhere from 48 hours to be approved and go live. Once it goes live, then you can log back into this page, and these options, instead of being grayed out, would be blue, and you'd be able to click on them to start your sponsoring campaign. Does that answer your question, Roberta? I hope it does.
I bet it does, Brandon. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, this looks like this next one, Brandon, is home instead specific. Please explain the refresh process, and since there is an Indeed specific ad, would we need to change the ad ID in order to refresh and move the ad up in the view in pecking order? So I'm thinking, and please share your thoughts, Brandon, that is HI corporate Indeed sponsored ad for home instead accounts?
Yes, I think that's what she's referring to, the Indeed 2 job title, and that is a very home instead specific question. Again, I don't know how much value there is in refreshing a job if it's already sponsored. Maybe someone else can let me in on that, but if you really were bothered by that 30+ days ago tag that Indeed puts on it, then yeah, you would just clone the job and then take the original and change it from the open stage to an inactive stage, and then your new cloned job would now be the open job that you're pushing out, and that would refresh the date for you.
Mm-hmm. And again, that if it's Indeed all uppercase, if that's the job ID, then Brandon, isn't it correct, or we could check on it, that should not be modified? That job should not be modified at all, again, because it's sponsored by Home Instead Corporate.
Yes, that is true. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, we just want to leave those alone, because if we fiddle with it, then it could take away the sponsorship that the Indeed, that the Home Instead Corporate is paying for.
Yep. All right. Next question is, we've had applicants advise us that when submitting applications via Indeed, they are limited to uploading only one document. But our application packet requires submission of multiple documents, such as resume, cover letter, school transcript, writing sample, etc. Is this a limitation imposed by Indeed, or is it a limitation created by the interface between ApplicantStack and Indeed? Any advice on how we should guide these applicants to submit additional documents via Indeed?
Well,
yeah, hold on. I'm trying to get to the end of that question. Via Indeed. That was the end, Brandon. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So you ask if it's a limitation by Indeed or a limitation of the interface between ApplicantStack and Indeed. I consider those one and the same. Indeed provides ApplicantStack with APIs, which are programming languages that we can talk to and push our data out to Indeed and then receive data from them. So it is a limitation with Indeed. I don't know. Well, what I should say is if the limitation is there, then it would be Indeed making that limitation. We can certainly on the ApplicantStack side, we can have them upload multiple documents. So what I would recommend in this situation is just put on your application as much as Indeed will let you, whatever they pass back through to the applicant. And then if you need to add additional uploads, I would do that through the questionnaire function, okay, like I showed earlier. So create a message in the templates, have that message say something like, thank you for applying. We need an additional document from you. Please click here to upload that document. And then that way you're still getting the same information. It's just a bit of a workaround when you're working with Indeed.
I also wonder, Brandon, I also wonder is if you've got Indeed Apply on, if that's a function of Indeed Apply. Because within ApplicantStack, you can request multiple documents during the initial application process, like you very much know, Laura. But if you've got Indeed Apply on, and I'm just talking out loud here because we might have to defer to technical support on this as well, I'm wondering if that's a limitation of Indeed Apply. And the use case for Indeed Apply is a very quick initial application process. You want to get those candidates in, you want to evaluate them, and determine whether or not they're qualified. So with Indeed Apply, you don't want long questionnaires. You don't want really anything that's going to impede a very quick application process. So I'm wondering if you've got Indeed Apply on. So Laura, I'm going to make a note and look in your account and see. And again, we might need to pull in tech support on this as well.
Yeah.
Kind of a little fuzzy answer to your question, but we will certainly determine a more solid answer to your question. All right, we're getting some thank yous, Brandon.
Yeah, great job, Ellen. I see that.
Yeah. Will this be available later for viewing? Yes, I believe this was being recorded. Next question. If an applicant is deleted by mistake, can we retrieve them? You as an ApplicantStack user cannot retrieve them. Our technical support team, I should say, can try to retrieve them. So if you do delete an applicant or a candidate accidentally, create a technical support ticket and, of course, provide the candidate name and ask to see whether or not that individual can be retrieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think you're saying, Katerina, that if it was deleted, it might have been by mistake. I would just educate your team, anyone using ApplicantStack, that in almost all situations, it's not very advisable to delete anything. I wouldn't delete a user. I wouldn't delete an applicant. Try to use the archive or a deactivation function so that you can always retrieve them later on your own.
All right, some more thank yous, Brandon. Oh, wow. Roberta's already modified her account and she now has the ability to sponsor ads on Indeed.
Great job, Roberta.
Excellent. I know. Excellent. I check if Indeed Apply is on. Thanks. This is Laura again. The problem is that once the applicant applies through Indeed, their application is now populated in the ApplicantStack, but they cannot access it through ApplicantStack because they created it via Indeed.
Okay.
Laura, let's take your questions offline. Unless you want to take that, Brandon?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, there could be a lot of different solutions to her problem. The first one that comes to mind is if you have a very specific application that needs to be completed, then I would not have Indeed Apply turned on. Like Ellen talked about, that the purpose of Indeed Apply is for very quick application process. You're casting a very wide net. You're trying to remove any kind of obstacle possible for this candidate to apply. You're almost collecting just their basic contact information sometimes. So if you have an extensive application and it's required, then I would turn Indeed Apply off. That doesn't mean they can't apply through Indeed. What it means is if they go to Indeed and find your job and are interested, then that blue apply button is just going to say apply on company site. And they click on that, it will take them to the full ApplicantStack application. And then you're not going to run into these same issues. Now, as far as them being able to later access their application, there is a function that you'd want to contact your account manager to activate or to show you how to do that. I don't think we're going to I'm not going to demo that now, but we can turn on a feature that where the candidate creates a login to apply. So they create a username and a password, and then they can log in to start their application. And then if they run out of time or they need to, go get another document before they finish, then they can log out and then come back to it later, and it saves their application. But as far as I know, without doing that, Ellen, I don't think you can come back and edit your application, correct?
Correct. It's a system-wide setting, and that system-wide setting is requiring that candidates create a username and a password. And once done, that does allow candidates to come back in and edit any previously submitted information. It also allows ease of use for candidates who apply to multiple jobs, because once a login and password has been created and that candidate accesses their candidate portal, they have the ability to apply for other jobs, additional jobs, without completing contact information and any other information that might be requested during your application process.
Very good. Thank you, Ellen.
Yep. All right. So we're getting some thank yous. We're getting makes perfect sense. That's from Laura. Looks like that could be it for right now. I'm staring at my screen to see if any other questions. Like I stare, like the questions are just going to pop up. We got a thank you. The only other thing, Brandon, I would suggest is just going back to your ApplicantStack homepage. And I suspect these folks signed up for this webinar via the announcement section. But just to reinforce what's coming up next, you'll see a variety of additional webinars scheduled throughout the first quarter of 2023.
Okay. Oh, I see right there. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Those are the links that
I
I was referring.
Excellent questions, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We know there's a lot to chew on here, and your questions really helped us dig into some of the details there that we might have otherwise glossed over. So thank you so much for asking such thoughtful questions, and thank you for being ApplicantStack users. We as account managers are always here for you and trying to do everything we can to make your experience good and keep you knowledgeable and trained in how to use the software. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Excellent job, Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
All right. We'll see you all next time then. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.